and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever found a scarecrow attractive, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and Pearl's mom really should have made some roti, and they'd have been okay.
I'm Nico, and country boys make do.
And I'm Dan.
Oh, and we're here today to review
I swear to God.
Pearl. This was directed by Ty West, starring Mia Goth as the eponymous Pearl, David Corenswet as the projectionist, Tandy Wright as Ruth, aka Pearl's mom, Matthew Sunderland as Pearl's father, Emma Jenkins-Purro as Mitzi, and Alistair Sewell as Howard. We open in 1918 with Pearl, a young woman living on a farm in Texas with her mother and father. Her husband, Howard, is fighting overseas in World War I, and her father's extremely ill, requiring constant care and supervision from Pearl and her mother. One day, Pearl's mother sends her to go get some medicine for her papa. She goes to get the medicine, but then goes to see a movie. Pearl dreams of being a dancer, but it seems like she may never get to fulfill that dream. After all, she's stuck on this farm with her parents. Dan, what happens next?
Well, after the movie finishes, the one that she was watching, that is, Pearl meets up with the projectionist, and the two have a conversation. Pearl leaves, and on the way home, she, I don't know how to put this lightly, she loudly masturbates with a scarecrow. Yeah. A while later, Pearl is visited by Mitzi, her sister-in-law. Mitzi tells her that there is a dancing audition coming up, and Pearl is enamored by the idea. She goes to the projectionist, who shows her some extremely retro pornography, and then tells her to follow her dreams. And she also tries to feed her father to the local alligator, but her mom catches her in the act and stops it. Yeah.
She scare on my crow till I pearl.
Nico, we're skipping you. Afterwards, Pearl and her moms get into a big argument. Her mother tells Pearl that she knows what she does with animals, and no, not that, but more on that later.
Oh, thank God.
After the scarecrow, I did not know. And she knows that Pearl has a malevolence inside of her. Pearl tells her that she's going to go to that dance audition, and the two come to blows. Somehow, Pearl's mother ends up getting set totally on fire in 0.01 seconds, and then Pearl puts her out, then drags her charred, but still alive, body down to the cellar. She then runs back to the projectionist, and they guck.
They guck.
They guck?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's me trying to autocorrect. But, they have sexual relations. Nico.
Oh,
They yuck.
Christ.
They yuck. They yuck. But Nico, you're next. What happens?
My God. So Pearl wakes up early the next morning, and she and the projectionist head back to her farm. He gives her a ride back. He meets her father, but Pearl's mother begins to make some noises in the cellar. The projectionist is a bit uncomfortable and tries to leave, but Pearl freaks the fuck out and kills him. After, she kills her father and heads to the dance audition with Mitzi, but she's rejected. So she causes a scene and then goes home with Mitzi.
Well, Dan, she wasn't the belle of the ball, but how does this end? The fall.
With a lot of blood splattered all over the wall.
I'm pretty tall.
Yeah.
Pearl tells Mitzi that there's so much she needs to say to Howard. So Mitzi tells her to practice with her. At this point, Pearl confesses to cheating on Howard, killing animals, killing her parents, and feeling like she lacks something that other humans seem to have. Mitzi tells Pearl that she got the dancing role and then tries to skedaddle, but Pearl chases her down with an axe and kills her. She then sets her parents up at a dinner table with a bunch of rotting food. The movie ends with Howard coming home from the war, only to find the corpses of his in-laws at the dinner table, and Pearl telling him that she's happy he's home.
With the most anxiety-inducing credit roll I've ever seen.
Right?
Jesus. She held that face for a solid, 5 minutes or so?
Few, at least. Yeah.
Uncanny.
So let's break down how this movie looks. I'll start so I can say something nice. It's a real bright film. Real bright, real sunny. The transitions sometimes are literal kind of like screen wipes. It's very much meant to look and emulate the feel in some instances of like an old film, While, I mean, it's interesting because it's just so bright and colorful. It feels almost more like a fairy tale than it does a horror movie at
Hmm.
times. Dan, how's this movie look?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Very bright, very colorful, lots of saturation in the film. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting was near the end ish when she starts chopping up the body. I thought it was kind of cool, like all the visual effects going on, like they mirror the screen and they do all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff. And that part was probably the most gruesome part, but it was a little more whimsical because of those visual effects. So I thought that was a really interesting choice there, almost like psychedelic-y kind of. But yeah, very colorful, very uh, trying to harken back to ye ancient days.
So, Nico, this movie was colorful. Confirmed.
Yeah, no, I loved the visuals here. It really sort of, for me, harkened back to like old style cartoons and animation and stuff. And like you mentioned the fairy tale sort of vibes, and I definitely think that's another big sort of. Uh, you really hit the nail on the head there in terms of just a lot of the ways that the characters are set up in terms of like the archetypes. Like we've got the farm is basically, sorry, the inside of the farm is basically the like the big old evil tower where the lead princess is locked away by her evil stepmother type deal. And there's just a very sort of fanciful air of over everything. It almost felt like Technicolor in a way, and I love that shit. So A plus on the visuals for me.
Mm-hmm. Let's take it straight to sound. Dan, what was your thoughts?
I thought it sounded pretty good. One interesting thing, I pretty sure the whole score is all orchestral, live
Mm-hmm.
orchestral. I didn't really catch any synths or any other synthetic sound, if you will, which I think was done. Well, I mean, obviously done intentionally, but I think that's also to harken back to the olden days when, in the 1900s and early 1900s, it was, real orchestras. So I think that was a cool choice.
Yeah, it definitely had all the vibes of one of them, their moving pictures from back in the day. And I will say as well, it also reminded me a little bit of like classic Tom and Jerry cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
the strings, and for a large chunk of this movie, it's not the standard horror score. It's again very fanciful at times, almost borderline heroic or free. So there's certainly that. Nico, what do you got to say about the sound?
So I want to echo everything that both of you just said, but I also want to add, I think the performances are really good. I think that in particular, Mia Goth gives a really charismatic presence as our lead Pearl here. But beyond that, the rest of the cast does a great job as well. You know, we've got a really sort of charming, honest character in Mitzi. We've got these menacing figures in her mother and just I think society at large from Pearl's perspective. So I think the actors on the whole did a really good job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get down to business, shall we? First and foremost, we can't talk about Pearl without talking about Pearl. So, how do we feel about her character?
I liked her character. I thought it was pretty cool to see this sort of progression because at the beginning, she's more innocent and they definitely, they talk about how she's killed animals and she's talked about it. So we know that she's not totally innocent, but at least what we see of her is. And then as the movie progresses, obviously she gets more and more uh, evil, I guess, if you will. And not only that, but she starts to come to realization of that and understanding of that as well. Whereas at the beginning of the movie, I don't think she really knows that. She hasn't understood that, realized that herself. So I really liked her character progression of coming into herself, I guess, and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Nico, how about you?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said there, Dan. I think it is a really wacky isn't the right word, but in reference to just the vibes from the sound of the entire thing, it does feel almost like a sort of wacky, not clumsy, but certainly murderously lackadaisical, I guess, is a way
I
you
like
could think
that.
about it. But I do really like Pearl's character. It is interesting to see how we go from okay, yeah, there's a few screws loose to that she's missing way more than just that. She's very clearly past some sort of point of no return. But the thing that I like the most about her is that she does have that realization that there's something different. And I don't mean to be cheesy and imply that if there was a moment in, say, like, I don't know, a Halloween movie where we've got our boy Mike Myers, he takes off the mask and he's like, huh, I really am a problem. That would necessarily make those movies better. I just think that it is a fitting moment in her character arc to have that here.
I have a question for you. Do you think she's a heroine?
Of her own story, absolutely. She's a monster, but she is the heroine of her own story. Like, she gets her own happy ending. Well, I guess not happy, because they even say in the film, like, you're not at a certain point, her mother says you're not searching for happiness, you're just trying to make the most of what you've got. And that's a big theme for her, sort of like loss prevention. And that comes to fruition in, I don't want to say the best way, I don't want to say the worst way, but she does secure a future with Howard, which is what she wanted.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that statement, bruh. There is nothing. I don't even see
She's
how
not
she's
the
the
hero of
heroine
her own
of her.
story.
No, I disagree totally.
How is she not the hero? Everyone's the hero of their own stories.
If everyone is, then no one is. What? Like, my thing is this: like, if what does she do to be the hero of her own story? What does she achieve?
She achieves independence of her parents and all of the other forces that were trying to prevent her from doing her thing and being
From
who she
leaving
wants
the
to be.
farm, which was her goal, right? To leave the farm and go pursue her dreams.
Initially, yes,
stated
to
goal.
leave the farm, but it morphs towards just her having her own independence and agency, and she does get that at the end.
I mean, does she really?
Yes, 100%.
Because now she's still stuck on the farm that she doesn't want to be on with Howard.
I mean, it's not a picture perfect ending, but she did get what she was looking for in terms of being able to live her own life unequivocally.
See,
Without
I
a
disagree
doubt.
with you. I think she doesn't. She's still stuck on the farm. She's just making the best of a bad situation. But
Right, which
I don't
is
think
the
that
whole like notion that she and her mom were sort of growing and learning to bond over, which is
You
why
think
they
they were
embraced
bonding
at
over
the
that?
end. Through hardship, even though they like hated each other, yeah, you're gonna bond with someone that you don't like.
So I'm gonna say this because otherwise we'll go back and forth on that all day. I hate Pearl as a character.
Who could have seen this coming?
I think she is one of the worst characters I've ever seen in a horror movie, ever. Like up there with Ghost Stories as one of just the worst protagonists, I guess if you want to call her that, in a horror movie I've ever seen.
She is the protagonist.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but like only in the technical sense of the word. And like for me personally, it's so fucking pointless. Like just everything she does is pointless. I think the only good thing that she does is what Dan said at the end where she's like, "Nah, I am a psycho." But like outside of that, bruh, she's just like a bad person. And I feel like the film strikes this really odd tone where like I think the film thinks it's smarter than it is because it's like, oh, we're creating this dichotomy where like, you know, you're going to want to root for her, but you're not going to want to root for her because she's so bad. And I'm just like, no, like she's just like a shit person. I never wanted to root from her for the start. And I'm just like, what is the point of this? Like, what's the point? Didn't make any sense to me. So now, and this is following into this, but how do you think this film does as a prequel to X? Technically, in terms of release order, X comes first.
Right,
So a
because
lot
X
of people
gonna give it to you.
You're right. And
What?
most people saw X before they saw this.
Linear nature of time and all that.
So how does this do as a prequel to X?
I liked it a lot, actually, as a prequel. I thought it was really cool to see Pearl become the Pearl that we know from X. And again, sort of step into herself and her own role. They, of course, they throw in a lot of little like Easter eggs to X, like, oh, the wheelchair. Now we know where the wheelchair is from, all this kind of thing. But I thought it was just really cool, and in knowing that you kind of sort of know how it ends, not exactly, but you kind of know, and okay, I know she doesn't kill Howard, and it's just really cool to see. I guess I'm saying the same thing, but how Pearl becomes Pearl.
So I'll go ahead and go next. I thought this was a bad prequel, and I think that it ruins the character of Pearl for me a little bit compared to where she was in X, because in X, she was this just like really old woman who her husband could no longer satisfy her sexually. And I don't know, there was a lot to talk about there with like age and, old people do still want to fuck, like it's not like they don't. And there's just a lot that you could look at it. And she was also such a unique kind of villain. I feel like there weren't really too many other villains like Pearl and X. And then I feel like in this movie, it literally just boils down to, yeah, I've got a screw loose, which is like one of the most generic bad guy stories ever. And if that's what you're going to do, then cool. But this movie didn't even really have a body count like that. Not really. And like, yeah, towards the end, like you finally got like some kills, but I thought, the projectionist kill was mad tame. Father got off screened for some reason. Mom got kind of sort of burned up, but that was kind of lame too. The only one that was really like satisfying IMO was Mitzi. And it wasn't because of how she killed her initially, but seeing the dismemberment, I was like, oh, okay, that was pretty cool. But outside of that, I didn't like it as a prequel. And in fact, I feel like definitely, well, I'm sorry. That's getting ahead of myself. Nico, how's it do good as a prequel?
So here's where I disagree with you completely, because I think it's a great prequel.
Well,
In
you disagreed with me
particular-
completely already.
Yeah. Well, this is the part where I get to say it, is the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, see, like it's just like a verbal like back and forth. God,
All right.
Justin, you
I'll go
fucking
after you
amateur.
next.
You think we wouldn't be going at this for like 200 something episodes?
All right.
Anyway, no, I think that in particular with how a lot of the film centers around Mia Goth's relationship to someone who is trying to get their fame through pornography is a really clear through line. I think in particular when we see her I hate to say it and bring it up, but like I think the fact that we so very quickly in the film get a scene where she basically fucks the scarecrow is another sort of tie-in that this is a movie that is in more ways than one about sex. And I think it gives a really, I think, pretty deep context to who Pearl is in the end of X, because one of the things that she laments in her monologue towards the end is like she doesn't really ever feel loved, and she has that gap inside of her. And there is definitely more than one particular screw loose, but like there is, what am I trying to say? I'm not trying to say that she is a perfect villain or that she is completely redeemable, but there is a reason for why she is the way she is, and we see a lot of that.
What's the reason?
The movie that we just watched, bro.
Because I feel like she literally in that monologue, she said, yes, bad things happened, but even beyond that, the issue is me.
Right. And she also in that speech lamented that she like has this hole in her and that she, just doesn't feel loved by anybody.
I don't think the hole is that she doesn't feel loved by anyone. I think the hole is that she says there is something missing in me that everyone else seems to have.
I'm saying
And
that
it's
both
not-
of those things are true, not that they're mutually exclusive.
Well, I guess the whole I'm referencing is like when she says, specifically talking about her like mental issues, where she goes like, there is just something wrong with me. And like her mother refers to it as the malevolence. It frightens away the projectionist, and anyone that gets close sees it and starts to back away. And I think that's what she's saying is like, there is just some glitch in the matrix when it comes to her. Cause she was like, even Howard, like she doesn't love Howard. She said it straight up. Like she wrangled him because she wanted to use him as a way out.
Right.
So like,
Because she wanted her independence.
I mean, yeah, I guess that, and to just get off the farm. Like,
Right.
I think that's what it is. So I don't know. But Dan, let me ask you this. Does this stand alone, or do you think it has to be viewed in context with X?
I think it can stand alone, but I feel like a lot of this movie should be taken in context. And I think if you only watch Pearl, it's okay, but I feel like I would be left wanting a lot more and a lot more understanding because it feels like a prequel to me. And I really think it should be watched as a prequel, but it could probably be okay on itself by itself.
In my opinion, this like kind of takes a shit on X a little bit, like I said earlier. So I feel like if you are like me and you think about the movie the way I do, that it's better as a standalone than it is as a prequel. But I think a lot of people who like this movie and its relationship with X, if you like this movie, I think you will like it in context better. Nico, what's your thoughts?
So I have the benefit of having recently just had a conversation with someone about this exact subject. I watched this with some friends a couple of days ago, and one of them had only seen Pearl. So this is the second time he was watching Pearl. And he said that it worked for him, but he was still more just curious to learn like the lore and stuff. But that aside, I actually think that it works both as a standalone and as a prequel. It is so singularly, obviously, about Pearl, who herself is only a character in the next film that isn't entirely centered around her. But I think you could pick this up and then watch X and be fine. Like, I don't think there's any problems there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think this movie, to add in a X factor here, do you think that this movie is better if you watch X than Pearl? Or if you watch Pearl, then X?
I personally think it's better if you watch X first. And I was just literally thinking of this right before you said it, but...
All right, Professor X.
That's right.
Magneto was right.
Quick tangent here, but I think if you have that kind of question for like the Star Wars series, oh, do I watch the prequels first and then, or whatever, like... I feel like that's sort of a valid question. Not that this is invalid in this context necessarily, but these two movies came out so quickly after each other,
same
and
year,
as well
yeah.
as in Maxine is coming out not too long after. There's a reason why that happened, right? There's a reason why the directors put out these in this order. If he wanted it to be done and watched in a certain order, he could release it in that order. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, because obviously us as the consumer of the art can view it or experience it however we want. But I personally think it's better served to do it in the order that it was released, considering these are so quickly released one after another. It was intended that way.
Now, if any listeners want to talk to us about listening order for Kara no Kyokai,
I was about to talk about Kara no Kyokai, bro. I was
That shit is
literally
wild.
just about to be like, if you want to do an experiment in chronological order versus release order, you can try Kara no Kyokai and see for yourself the mind fuck. So I'm glad we were all on the same page there. Yeah, we're all weebs.
Fucking
So
staircases, man.
for those who don't know, you'll never know. So themes. I want to talk through some themes, and I really don't, but I'm supposing you guys do. So what are some themes?
Incredible.
So what are some themes in this movie?
You ever seen a talk show where someone's like, "Hey, welcome to the show. I don't want to fucking do this." Great energy, Justin.
I am high energy.
Yeah.
Whether I am on the
Yeah.
side of darkness or light, it matters not.
Riku.
The Jedi are just as evil to me.
The
Whatever.
Jedi are a bunch of pacifist cucks, and I hate them.
Emotion betray you.
Yeah, it's true. I'm just saying, I would have a red lightsaber every single fucking time, bro. No questions.
All right. Well, our saber's down. Name a theme.
So I'm going to go ahead, and I've already mentioned it a little bit, but just like your own independence and agency. I think that wanting to extricate yourself from a situation where you're in an awful environment is something that a lot of people can identify with. And I think in particular, to go back to your comment, Justin, about this being kind of fairy tale-esque, we do sort of get the experience of her wanting to like or even not wanting to, but like wishing that she could get away almost in the same way that someone locked away in, the dragon's lair would be like, oh, I wish a knight in shining armor would come. But, that's not quite the story we've got here.
Mm-hmm. Dan, can you call any good themes?
Yeah, it's sort of similar, kind of playing off of what Nico had said just now and also earlier. I think that there is something to be said about thematic material of like trying to find or finding people who care about you and finding a home, so to speak, in
Yeah.
with other people. Because I do think that that's a big part of this movie is even though she has screws loose and she realizes that, or she's missing a part of her, she realizes that a lot of the movie she is trying to find people who care about her. She doesn't feel that her parents do. I mean, her father can't really do much of anything. Her mother is sort of a hard ass, which I kind of understand why, it's
Right.
tough times and everything, but she doesn't get a lot of love from her mother. Her husband is off at war. So she has a close relationship with the animals that, she dances with the animals or in front of the animals. She talks to them and everything, but they're just animals. They're not real people. So I think, she finds this projectionist who is somebody who's willing to go out and just talk to her and make her feel a little wanted. And she kind of latches onto that. And I think a lot of the movie, she's trying to find people who care about her until near the end when she realizes that there's something wrong with her that people get scared of and back away from her.
Usually not quickly enough.
True.
I think one thing that I found in this movie as a theme is if something is too good to be true, then it usually is. Because the
for sure.
projectionist could not believe his luck that this woman whose husband was away at war was just hanging around him and kept coming by him, and that led to his
He's
death.
just like me for real.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he looked for what he got because, bro, I'd have never taken. You should have pointed out immediately that this girl was bugging, bro, and you should have just been like, "Nah, bro, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna let this play out a little bit. Let her do her dance thing." And honestly, I'd have been uncomfortable engaging in relationships with someone like her, anyways. So, yeah. But also for her, I think anytime she finds like a rainbow or a silver lining, it's not. And I think that applies just across the board, across the board. Now, influences on this movie. When we talked about X, of course, you have to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and other slashers that came out during that time period. What are some influences on this?
I really just keep going back to those sort of like rubber hose cartoons that you would find back in the day, like on the old Cartoon Network at the like ass crack of dawn when they were doing like a retro hour or something. And even just like in a more modern sort of example, like shit like Cuphead, because like even the way that Pearl's moving is cartoonish, and she's got the most sort of floral bouncing red dress that just pops out. I think the orchestration plays a massive part with that as well, because those were, as we mentioned, a big part of those cartoons as well. And as I'm sure you, listener, know, anyone who hasn't seen old-timey cartoons, you have a sad life, and I'm sorry for you. But yeah, I really, really do think they were trying to emulate that old sort of rubber hose aesthetic with the animation, but in, real life.
Mm-hmm. Dan, call an influence.
So you mentioned it on X, but I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a big influence on this as well, especially at the end, the sort of end scene where she's kind of sets her family up at that sort of morose dinner. And then the credit scene zoomed in on her face. Those two scenes very much reminded me of Texas Chainsaw at the end of that, where, it's the family sitting and like sort of sitting at the table with I can't remember her name from Texas Chainsaw, the victim girl.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
And sort of seeing her face contort and her emotions play out.
Just
and
like
everything.
The laughter.
Yeah. So I thought those two scenes were very much influenced by that.
Okay. In terms of influences, I would have to say kind of twofold. First and foremost, So there was, following World War One, and this is kind of like, I guess, perhaps the little beginning piece of that with the projectionist, but there was, like the whole like post-war boom and spread of like different types of arts and things like that, and there was like a cinema boom not too long afterwards. And because I forget when they started being able to add sound to pictures and to get like a little bit
I think
more,
it was the 30s. I might be wrong.
a little bit better color and stuff like that. Because I mean, we all watched, as listeners will know, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Is that the name of it?
Yes.
And it was basically like, cool,
1927, October 6, Warner Brothers released The Jazz Singer, the first feature-length film to incorporate synchronized sound for sequences of dialogue.
yeah. So they were kind of talking about how movies were going to get bigged up in the future. And they were kind of talking about blue movies, stag movies type thing. But he was like, I'm going to cash in on this now. The projectionist said that. And I think the early films, Nosferatu, things like that came out during that time, I think they wanted to put elements of that into this, but they also wanted to at the same time introduce, like Nico said, a lot of really bright and vibrant sound from cartoons, because I think those also play a really big role in this. But now I want to take it to the what would you do? And this is probably going to be one of the easier ones we've done on the podcast. You're Howard. You just survived fighting the Axis, and you come home. You come home to your girl. She's there along with her dead parents and a bunch of rotten food on the table. What do?
Leave.
Go
back to war. I want to do that. That was kind of fucked up. I want to do that.
Dan wins. This man said, I'm going to get trench foot instead. Man, I mean, yeah, I would run and then probably die.
I'm not going to lie. I would probably be like, did you do this?
No, Justin, it wasn't me. Heavens to Betsy, I swear, as laws I do.
All right, let's go then.
Depending on the woman, that's also how it would go for me. Like, if it was actually Mia Goth, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm dead.
Well, here's the thing. We know he stays, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
So he's a real one, I guess.
No, he's real fucking stupid.
I mean, yeah, you're right about that.
Well, all right, then. I guess that's that. So, we're getting close to Justin's rant, but time for the critic review. What does this have on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's gotta have something super high, and I bet that pisses you off.
Oh, it doesn't just piss me off. To quote my father, Justin, you're really pissing me up here, boy. And I'm like, yo,
Hey.
I'm pissing on you. And then he's like, yup. And I'm like, yo, and I got my ass whooped so bad, bro, for laughing at that. So,
Man.
it's really pissing me up here. That's right.
Piss me up.
Piss me up inside.
Can't piss up.
Some people can't. Some people can't. Actually, a lot of people probably can't. Anyhow,
You should
what
be
does this
pissing
have?
down, honestly.
I'm not even going to try to piss up. Sounds like a mess.
All right, what does this have, guys?
Save me.
I'm
Please
going to
tell me what this
say 91.
I'll do one higher. I'm gonna say a 92.
Nico wins. It's
Damn.
got a 92.
God damn it. I was so close.
So close. Audience was up there, but not quite as far up there with an 83. But I want to know your thoughts. Dan, take it away.
Overall, I enjoyed it. I didn't love a lot of it. I thought it was good, but the part that really got to me was Mia Goth's monologue near the end. At that part, I was like, wow, I think she killed it. That was really, really good. And that part to the end totally enraptured me. So I really liked that. But the rest of the movie I thought was good. I'm going to say 82.
I really, really fuck with this, to neither of you's surprise, I'm sure. In fact, I bet, well, I already told both of you because I saw this first. I bet if I hadn't seen this first, after seeing it, you two would have immediately recognized, oh yeah, Nico's going to love this. And I do love this. I am going to give this a 91.
I fucking hate this movie. Oh my God. I texted Dan and I was like, yo, this film is doo-doo. And I was right. Bro, I called Nico like 3 times. At first bemused, then concerned, and then angry. He didn't pick up for angry because he knew what the fuck was up. And
That sounds like the arc that Mia Goth goes through in this film.
Yeah, right.
then
This is
Dan,
an ARG experience for Justin.
and then when I texted Dan that this movie was the aforementioned doo-doo, he texted me back and he goes, yeah, Nico knew you would hate this one. And
I did.
I will say this. Maybe I just don't like Mia Goth in these movies. I remember when we discussed X,
You
I'm
weren't the
pretty sure
biggest
you
fan of
both
her in
were-
that either.
I'm pretty sure you both were like, oh, she's like charismatic though, and da-da-da. And I was like, I don't really think so. I think Jenna Ortega and the other chick totally outshine her. And I was like, and Kid Cudi too.
Gutters.
Yeah, Cutters indeed. And I did not think that she was like special in that film. And again,
Special.
I don't really know how much Mia Goth I've seen in my time. I don't hate her like I hate TJ Miller. Like, TJ Miller really gets me.
I would hope not.
Exactly. So it's like, this isn't like a personal beef I've got, but I just don't find her charismatic. She is like a pit, a black hole of charisma. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And I'm sorry, this film to me, to put it succinctly so I don't go on a long ass rant, this
Not
to
go
me
off, King.
was one of the most self-indulgent, pseudo-intellectual movies that I've had the displeasure of watching
Wow.
since Ghost Stories. Like,
Wow.
I do not think this movie earned any of the moments of levity. The part where she's at the dance scene and they have the little cutaway, I would accept that. I would like that in a better movie. I think nothing in this movie is earned. And I just find it to be so utterly pointless. Like, you don't understand. I timed it. Nothing scary, horror-y even happens for the first like 45 to 50 minutes, man, of a movie that is an hour and like 42 minutes long and like 45 seconds, because I dreaded every fucking moment of it. Like, this was one of those that I forced myself to because we're on a podcast. But realistically speaking, I almost was like, maybe I need to recontextualize how I'm looking at this movie. Maybe it's not meant to be horror. Maybe it's meant to be a drama instead, and I should look at it like that. But no. So for me, this gets a 40, and I gotta say, I know that Mia Goth helped write the script. I pray that she does not write Maxine. I know the movie's out at time of recording, and listeners, we are gonna review it. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that one, but I
It was
feel like
only written by Ty West.
okay, I feel half better now. Not really, because Ty West also helped write this too, so he had an okay on this. But all that to say, I really didn't like the plot, writing, characters, vibe, alligator, animals on the
You
farm.
didn't like the alligator, man? He was just chilling.
How is there a fucking alligator in the swamp that's laying egg? It have to be more than one. Have to be multiple alligator there.
Probably.
It's possible that there were.
Okay, if there is, then I accept that. I'm cool with the alligator. I dropped that beef. And like I said with Ghost Stories, I think that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the camera. And I think the sound design people did an amazing job. I think the people in charge of the visuals and camera work and the set design, amazing work. I liked Pearl's red dress. I thought that was awesome. And to be blunt, I don't even think she has a Wikipedia page, but Emma Jenkins Puro, her in particular, I thought she did an amazing job as Mitzi. I thought she did a really good job, and I would love to see her in another movie because she killed it, in my opinion. She wasn't in too much of the movie, but the parts that she was in, perfect. Even down to like the whole, I am the thing that I'm complaining about. Like, I loved her in this movie. I thought she did great. I hope she goes on to have much success. I'm going to give this one a 40. Fuck this movie.
That's higher than I thought.
Yeah.
For all that.
For the short new Great American Novel that we just got.
I mean, again, it's going to be really hard for me to get super, super low only because I feel like, yes, a lot of it's based on plot for me and characters and stuff like that, but I'm never going to forget the visual and sound people. So that 40 points there, that goes to them. They earned those 40 points.
All right.
And of course, everyone besides Mia Goth. So yeah.
Damn.
Now I'm going to tell you straight up, these two would probably recommend it. Out of curiosity, Nico, would you give this the golden seal of approval?
No.
Oh, okay. Dan, would you have?
No.
Okay. So Nico and Dan would have recommended this movie. Unfortunately, and this is going to be kind of an outlier. This happens sometimes where a movie is really well reviewed, but one of us, normally either me or Nico, has beef with it. So it doesn't get a recommend from us here on the podcast. So thanks to me, Justin, the hater.
Last
in the
time it
group.
was Dan.
Yeah, it was,
was
me
it?
last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What movie
Nightmare
was that?
6.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, fuck me. New Nightmare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Dan, how could you?
He did. Not how could.
How could you? What? Either way, yes. So this is not going to get a recommendation due to me. And guess what, dear listener? I'm ready for it. Bring on the hate. It makes me stronger. You can find me and the rest of us, being Dan and Nico, on X and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. That's Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can check out everything we've done on our website, which is dotdhorror.com. That's right. Let us know how you feel. You know what? You don't even got to talk to me about Pearl. Let me know what you think about, I don't know,
Any other movie.
any other horror movie. I'm here for it.
Except for ghost stories.
Except for no, you know what? Talk to me about ghost stories too. I'm down. I'm down to get riled up. Tell me about that shit before I go to the gym. Man, that's better than crack and pre-workout
Really?
mixed in
Crack a good thing?
methamphetamine spit.
Oh, wow.
Have you tried this?
Nah, I actually stay away from caffeine and all pre's. So that's it. Yeah. Interesting review, full of contentious talking points.
Incredible.
Nico, anything to add?
Hey, me
Dan,
Goth, if
anything
you're
to
li-
add?
No.
All right then, dear listener. As I always say,
Fuck you, Justin.
as we always say on the podcast, look out for one another. If you're going through something, definitely find someone to talk to, professional or otherwise. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.